timeline panel is hidden, so we must manually open it. To do so, go to Window, Timeline, and the panel should open up along the bottom here. If it is either floating or in a different place, you can simply drag it to the bottom of your screen. In the timeline, there are two different modes you can work in: frame animation or video timeline. It may default to either one when you open up for the first time. If your timeline looks like this, you're in frame animation, and if it looks like this, you can click this button to create a video timeline, or you can toggle this option to create a frame animation. Throughout this tutorial, we will only be using the video timeline, so let's take a look at that first. To get to the video timeline, simply click on the Create Video Timeline button. Let's familiarize ourselves with the workspace. Down here is a slider that allows you to zoom in and out of the timeline based on where your playhead is. This is the playhead. It shows you where you are in your timeline in regards to what you are viewing in your preview window. You can click and drag it to scrub through the timeline. If we zoom in, we can see that the timeline defaults to be 5 seconds long. These brackets are used to mark your work area. In other words, the beginning and end of your video. The timeline cannot be extended as is. It can only be as long as your longest layer or clip. So for example, if I want my video to be 30 seconds long, I can extend this layer to be 30 seconds, and my work area will extend with it. I can now make my work area smaller if I need to, but I cannot extend it any longer. This layer here is the same as this layer up in the layer panel. It is simply showing the duration of this layer in time. To demonstrate this, I will create 3 new layers here in the Layers panel. Each one I will fill with a different color. Now in the timeline, we can see the 3 colored layers. Again, they all defaulted to be 5 seconds long, but they can be extended or shortened simply by hovering over the end and dragging left or right. When the playhead reaches the end of this layer, it is no longer visible. So now we can see the layer below. And notice that the layer order is the same as it is in the layer panel. So the layer at the top is visible, but only for as long as its duration in the timeline. So if I were to make all these layers last for 1 second, and then stagger them in the timeline, when I press the play button, it creates a sort of animation of flashing colors. And if I wanted my video to end there, I would bring my work area down to the 3-second mark, so when I press play, it only plays that segment of the timeline. Right now it only plays back once. If you want to toggle your looping options, you can click on the settings wheel right here and check this box on or off. And with this box ticked, the video will loop continuously. In addition to the settings and the play button over here, we have some other tools. Here, we can move 1 frame forward, and here, move back 1 frame. And this brings your playhead to the beginning. On the other side, here we have our menus option. We'll go into more detail with this menu throughout the series, but for now I'd like to draw your attention to one of the options: the Enable Auto Grouping of Clips. When this is ticked, you are able to organize your clips very easily. So if you turn it on, we can see that if I drag my layers next to each other, it will automatically create a video group, which allows me to organize my timeline in a concise way. Notice that a video group was also created in the layer panel up here. Now the layers behave a little bit differently. Whereas before the layer order reflected the layers on top and below, now the layer order reflects the position along the timeline. So the topmost layer is now the last layer along the timeline. Okay, now that we have a basic understanding of the video timeline, I want to quickly show you the difference between the video timeline and frame animation. As I said, we're only going to be working in the video timeline throughout the series, but I want you to have an understanding of the way frame animation works. So now, if I switch the same flashing animation over to the frame animation panel view by either going to the Options menu, Convert Frame to Frame Animation, or by clicking this icon down here. And now the timeline looks very different. But if we press play, the animation has remained unchanged. The difference here is that instead of representing each layer separately, each one of these frames sets the visibility of the layers for a set amount of time. So when we select the first frame, we can see that the red layer is visible. This is because the layers above it, the blue and yellow layers, are hidden. And in the second frame, the yellow layer is visible because the blue layer above it is hidden. And in the last frame, the blue layer is visible. And for determining the duration of each color, we can set the frame to last for a specific amount of time by clicking this arrow and selecting an option. For example, if I change the frame duration to 0.5 seconds, the sequence will play faster. And if you want to create a longer animation and add more frames, you can do so by clicking this icon. When you click this icon, you create a new frame, and then by editing the visibility of the layers or adding new layers, you can change the appearance of the frame. In this mode, the looping options are different as well. Down here, you can set the video to play once, 3 times, or a custom amount of times, or you can loop it forever, allowing the video to loop continuously. One of the limitations of the frame animation mode, and why we won't be using it in this tutorial, is that it only deals with still images, whereas the video timeline allows you to import video files, image sequences, and audio. In the video timeline, we can easily edit video, add transitions, as well as incorporate animated elements, all of which we will cover in this series. But before we get started on all of that, we must learn how to correctly set up our document and understand a little bit more about video formats and what is meant by frame rate. We will cover all of this in the next clip. Thanks for watching and see you next time.